In today's video, I'm going to answer the questions: what is a post-occupancy agreement? Why are sellers asking for them? What are the pros and cons of them? And what can I do to protect myself if I'm in that situation? Hi, Laura Gallen here with Mountain Prairie Living, empowered by ERA Shields. And on this channel, I answer questions about the home buying and selling process and home ownership. So if you're in that process and you'd like to know more answers to some of the questions you may have, then subscribe to the channel. I love hearing your questions, so either comment below in this video or connect to me. My contact information is in the description box below. I'm so glad you're here. Let's get to it. So what is a post-occupancy agreement? Essentially, it's an agreement between the buyer and the seller for the seller to remain in the property for a certain amount of time after the closing. So let's go over some of the points of negotiation in a post-occupancy agreement. I'm going to read these points off the list because there's quite a few of them for our state. You're going to negotiate the possession, date, and time, maintenance of the property, damage to the property, buyer access to the property, restoration if damage occurs to the property, rent amount, compliance with the law, failure to vacate, what are you going to do? Who's going to pay for the water, sewer, electric, gas, or propane? The buyer's homeowner's insurance policy and the seller's, which will become a renter's policy. It's going to define the security deposit, attorney fees and costs if they were necessary because actions needed to be taken, and additional provisions that are specific to what you and the buyer and the seller agree upon. So in today's crazy seller's market, we are seeing buyers offer zero for rent because it's such a strong market and they want their offer to be accepted. So what are some of the pros and cons from a buyer's standpoint or a seller's standpoint for use of a post-occupancy agreement? So obviously from a seller's standpoint, it's going to give you time to take the proceeds from this sale to go under contract on another home. In today's fast-moving seller's market, if you're in a multiple offer situation, the sellers are not going to look at a contingent offer. And a contingent offer means that you're saying to the seller, hey, I want to buy your house, but I have to sell this house first. So from the seller's standpoint, a post-occupancy agreement allows them to eliminate that contingency. They already have the cash, and so they can make a great offer. From a buyer's standpoint, the pro is if it's a multiple offer situation and you have the opportunity, because not everyone has the opportunity to move in later, then you might be the one chosen in a multiple offer situation if the seller needs a post-occupancy agreement. So in this crazy market, we're seeing more of the post-occupancy agreement for those two main reasons. So if this is the scenario that you're facing, you need to do a post-occupancy agreement. I'm going to talk about some things that I suggest or recommend. Of course, I'm not a lawyer. You want to review all of this with any legal counsel if necessary. But here's some suggestions of things if you're a buyer or a seller. I highly recommend that you send the post-occupancy agreement with your offer to purchase the home. You want this agreement to come in the beginning for a variety of reasons, but mainly the offer partly is the post-occupancy agreement. In our state, we have to check a box that says there's a post-occupancy agreement and I can say it's part of this contract. But you want to do it in the beginning so that you're both on the same page. Over time, during the transaction, things may get screwy and it might get weird. So you want to make sure that your agreement with the seller regarding the post-occupancy is laid out from the beginning. 2, make sure you check with your lender. Most lenders allow 60 days on an owner-occupied type loan for you to occupy the property. But there's a lot of different loan programs out there, so be sure to check with your lender to make sure that you can offer a post-occupancy agreement. 3, you want to make sure that the sellers provide you at closing a copy of their renter's insurance policy. Now you're going to have your homeowner's insurance policy on the home at that point, so you're going to be covering the actual property. They need to cover their contents inside. So make sure you get a copy of their current active renter's insurance policy. get a security deposit. Now you could do a variety of ways. You can have that deposit taken out and have escrow or title hold that money. You could have them do a cashier's check in your name and you hold on to that until they give you possession of the property. You've walked through it, everything's in good order, and you hand it back to them. But you do want something in case they damage the property or things go missing. Get a key to the property. At closing, you own the property. You actually are becoming owner and landlord for a short period of time at the same time. Now, you will have to follow all of the tenancy laws of the city and county that you live in, or the state that you live in, but you should and have a key so that you have access to your own property. You will define how you have access, and typically it's a 24 hours notice to gain access. And of course, if it's near the end of the occupancy, you want to do a final walkthrough before you finish out this post occupancy agreement to make sure that everything's in good order. Now, at the final walkthrough of the closing, not the post occupancy agreement, but of the closing, when you're taking ownership of the property, when you're doing that final walkthrough with your real estate professional, take pictures of the property. Take pictures of the appliances, take pictures of everything in the house so you know what it looks like at the point you take ownership and they become your tenant. As I said earlier, in today's crazy sellers market, we're seeing zero rent offered for the seller to stay in the property. But if you are to negotiate rent for their time in the property, have it taken out of their proceeds at closing. Don't have them pay you different. Just have it taken out of the proceeds at closing. So that post-occupancy agreement is part of the contract between you, the buyer, and the seller. So have it done then. Here are some things I recommend if you're the seller. Again, I'll start with number one. You want to make sure that post-occupancy agreement is agreed upon upfront at time of execution of the contract. For the same reason, you want to make sure that you agree upon how long you're in the house, when you're going to leave, how much the rent is going to be, if there is any, what the security deposit is, so that you're in agreement. So obviously, for both sides, that's the most important step. Make sure that you do that from the beginning at the execution of the contract acceptance to purchase. Your next step is to get a renter's insurance policy. On the day of closing, you no longer own the property, so your homeowner's insurance will not be valid anymore. So you need to have something to protect your contents, your personal property inside the home. And your seller or your buyer may be asking you for a copy of that renter's insurance policy. Be clear on your move-out date and the time you're moving out, and be ready to clean that property. So step 3 and step 4 are set the date and time and be prepared to clean it up, just as you would if you were leaving the property at closing. Define when and how that security deposit will be refunded. So it could be through title. If they took it at title, then you want to have, title's going to probably have you sign a form, both the buyer and the seller are in agreement, and that money will be refunded back to you through the title company. If you've given them a check, you want to make sure that they're refunding you that check. However you decide, but define how the security deposit will be returned and when. This next one's hard for many sellers because it's been your home. You've been living in it. You really haven't moved out of it yet. But you need to understand that at the point of closing, you are no longer the owner, you become a tenant. So if that buyer wants to have access to the property, they have to use the laws of that state, county, or city, and they must usually ask for 24 hours notice to access the property. They can't just walk in, but you will need to be giving them a key, and you will need to allow them access because technically it's their property now. A post-occupancy tool is a great tool in today's market. It's such a low inventory, and many sellers are hesitant to list their home because they're afraid of trying to get under contract somewhere else and that time frame. So use of a post-occupancy agreement isn't a bad thing in today's market. It actually can help us with inventory, help you find homes, and it's just not a bad tool, but it does need to be used properly. You need to be clear from the beginning, and you need to behave as the post occupancy has outlined. Just know the pros and cons of it and when it's used and how it's used, and maybe it'll help you win if you're a buyer, and maybe if you're a seller, it'll give you that time to find that next house that you want to buy. Thanks so much for watching. I'm so glad you're here. If you found value in this video, then give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. If you want to know more strategies about buying and selling in this crazy seller's market, then check out this video next. Have a wonderful day.